Hey y'all, welcome to the Healing Station with Dr. Davis. I am your host, Dr. Davis, and welcome back. Welcome back. Yay! I'm so excited. We are here back again, season 3. Can y'all believe it? Season 3? Oh my goodness. So we've been rocking together for 3 seasons now. And I'm so excited and so thankful. So everyone, just want to say thank you so much for your feedback, so much for your encouragement. You know, all of you know who you are, those who have been a part of this journey with me. And I'm so thankful. I don't take that lightly. All of you who listen, who have just been loyal to this. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I just want to encourage those, if you're not already, to definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go ahead and follow on your favorite podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify, all these different things. And don't forget to rate and review. That's just how it gets pushed out to other people. So I definitely want to encourage you to give your feedback and to share. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And today is me. As you can see, I'm going to solo it out today. And I'm excited. And honestly, I'm a little nervous. So I was like, what am I going to talk about as we come into this first episode of season 3? And I realized that throughout the past 2 seasons and throughout different episodes that you'll hear little snippets about me, how I got here and all of these things. So I'll tell little snippets of my testimony, but there's nowhere where you hear like the whole thing, like in order. So I was like, okay, let me use today's episode to talk about my testimony, particularly my testimony on how Heal to Hear, which is the private practice and mental health, all that kind of stuff happened. So kind of focusing on that part of my testimony, why mental health, why psychologists, why all of this. So I'm going to share about that. I'm going to share that today. And why I said I'm nervous is because it is a long story and I'm going to try to condense it as much as possible. And I'm really hoping that sharing this story is going to fortify your faith and really bless you. Whether or not you're in your own journey, whether it's an academic journey, career journey, or whatever, if you are on a faith walk, I really feel like this will help stir up your faith. And so I am excited to encourage you today and also encourage myself because, we're in the beginning stages and we're still doing a lot of things and there's a lot of growth happening in this season. And so I feel like my faith needs to be encouraged because I feel like we're on a whole nother level of faith walking right now. But I'm very excited and the Lord has been extremely faithful, extremely kind. And I'm just so thankful. So let's get started. So I feel like it's appropriate to go ahead and start this in undergrad. And the reason is that is when the idea basically came to me. So when I went to undergrad, I actually was a bio pre-med major. My plan was to go and be an obstetrician gynecologist. I was like, yes, I am going to deliver babies, be a woman doctor. That was my plan. I know when I was in elementary school, I was like, oh, pediatrician and stuff like that. But then I evolved and was like, I'm gonna be a woman doctor. This is what I'm gonna do. So went ahead, was in undergrad, doing the pre-med thing. It was extremely hard. Lots of science, lots of math, all of the things. Really loved science, wasn't too fond of math. Calculus still doesn't make sense to me to this day, but God bless those who have that gift. And I had to take an elective, and one of the options for the elective was psychology, the intro to psych. And I decided to take it, not so much because I was interested in psych, but because I was interested in getting an easy A. And I was told that the class was very, very entertaining, very, very interesting, and it would kind of break up the sciences and math that I was taking and kind of help with the schedule. And they were right because it was very entertaining. It was a tag team class where 2 well-known psychologists taught it, and they were super awesome, super funny. It was very interesting, but it wasn't interesting enough at the time for me to be like, oh, I'm going to change my major and be a psychologist. Like, no, I'm good. And I don't remember at what point in the semester we had a guest lecture, but at some point well into the semester, we had a guest lecture. or come in, and they were going to talk about African-centered psychology. And I was like, well, this sounds interesting. And so this man came in, black male with long dreads in African garb. And I'm like, who is this man? And so find out he's a psychologist, and he's talking to us about African psychology and all of these different things and all of the research around it and da 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 da. And I'm sitting there like, this is amazing. I'm like, whoa, this is interesting. I can see myself in this. I can see myself in this research and all of this that he was sharing. And I got really excited about it. And I don't know what came over me. I can just like Holy Spirit, because this was kind of my personality, kind of not. I don't know, because I am kind of person. I'm a people person, so I was just like, look, I'm going to meet this man, and I'm going to just learn more about him and what he does, and like pursue mentorship. Honestly, so that was my plan. And found out where he was on campus, got his email, reached out to him, met up with him. He was Dr. Kevin Coakley, just put him out there, and got to meet him. He told me about the Association of Black Psychologists, and there was a student circle on campus, so I got involved with that. And in my head, I was like, this has nothing to do with my med school plans, but I found my people, and I was like, look, being at a predominantly white institution is really important to have mentorship and just be able to find support. And so I was like, this will be a great place for support, a way to get involved in organization. Of course, that's great for med school apps. And I got involved in research through this organization, and everyone in the organization wants to be a psychologist, wants to be some type of doing some type of clinical work in that realm of mental health. But I was like, I'm still going to go to med school. And so I was a part of this organization. I ended up being an officer and all these other things, but I was still very married to my plan of becoming a medical doctor. But I enjoyed what I was doing, and I got to travel. It was great. And I remember going to this conference. It was Chicago with the Association of Black Psychologists. And this professor gave me a card, and she was like, let me know when you want to get a PhD. And I'm like, lady, you can take your card back, because I'm not getting a PhD. Like, what is that? Still convinced that wasn't going to happen. But I remember that exchange to this day. I can see it in my head right now, because that kind of started planting a seed and started that shift. So from there, I ended up switching my major. At this point, I believe it's my sophomore year. And I ended up switching my major psychology, because I was like, it'll be a little, I got interested in these classes. I got interested in research. It felt easier to go that route because it was just interesting. And I started toying with the idea in my head that maybe I wanted to be a psychiatrist. Maybe that's what I wanted to do. And so started toying with that idea, switched my major, started focusing on that, and really enjoyed those classes. Around this time is 2010. This is my sophomore year. And I was experiencing symptoms of what I now know as lupus for a while, but I was ignoring it, thinking that it was just the fact that we're students, we're not eating very well, we're running around late nights, early mornings, all of that. So of course you're tired. Of course, all of these things are happening. The hair loss was a little confusing to me, but as I lost more and more hair to the point that it was noticeable, that's when I was like, okay, let me go to the doctor, because maybe this is stress. Like, what's going on? From there, it took a month of different testing that was taking place. I missed a lot of classes at this time, was feeling really sick, and was just looking for answers of what was going on in my body. And that is when I was diagnosed officially with lupus. And I remember telling the doctor when he came in, and he was coming in all somber, and he's like, I just want to let you know, like, you have lupus. Mind you, he tells me I have lupus, and I was like, praise God. Like, I literally was super excited. And he's looking at me like, do you know what lupus is? And I was like, it's not cancer. I remember that's exactly what I said. And I was like, it is well, like, and he was like, okay, you don't know what this is. So he broke it down to me, let me know chronic illness, all of these things, no cure. So when I heard chronic illness, no cure, I'm like, oh, this is devastating. So now I'm devastated, and I'm just like, oh, I'm thinking you're going to give me a pill and then we're going to be done with this. Like, I didn't know this was going to be a process and a long haul situation. Hold on. And I knew about chronic illness because my sister has sickle cell anemia, and I watched her have to wrestle with that her whole life, and just how she's been able to, of course, overcome so much, beat the odds in so many ways, but somehow, some way, sickle cell will always remind her, like, "Hey, you got me," kind of thing. And I was just like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I don't know if I look at her as so strong, and I'm just like, I don't know if I have the strength to have a chronic illness. Like, what does that mean? How's that going to impact me? It was so much to learn, so much to take in. And it was at this time, because of that transition and because of all that was taking place, that I sought out counseling for the first time ever. I was like, look, I can't do it. I can't process all this on my own. I need help. And so I went to our counseling center on campus, and I remember them asking me, like, do you care about, have preference or whatever? I didn't have a preference. I was like, whoever's trained back there, put me on their calendar. And they matched me with this clinician who, although very sweet, could not handle what I was bringing. Not just it wasn't so much the chronic illness part. It was more so being at a PWI, being a student of color, being a Black woman, all of this stuff like that. They weren't equipped for that, to help me navigate all of that. And it started to get to the point where I felt like I needed to protect my therapist from my story. And that's when I realized, like, I've never been to counseling, but I don't think this is how it's supposed to go. Like, I don't feel like we're supposed to switch roles and I'm supposed to be taking care of you. That was weird. So no shade to them, but I was like, this isn't going to work. They're clearly not equipped for this, and I still need help. And I knew I didn't want to give up on this. So I went and I asked the people at the front, I was like, hey, I don't feel like this is a good fit. I need somebody of color. You got a Black woman back there, you got a Black man, you got somebody back there that can help me. And they had one Black woman on campus at the time, and her wait list was super, super long. But I was like, I'm willing to wait, and I need this help. And so once I started meeting with her, it was amazing. Very helpful, helped me through the process and got me started on that journey and of being able to grieve and move into acceptance when it came to lupus and like all the different things that were going on. So that was extremely helpful. That experience made me realize that we need more clinicians that look like me. And I, again, was still married to the whole psychiatrist thing, but I was like, okay, they need me in mental health. Like, I feel like this is the area that I could find purpose in. And so, again, that seed was planted. I was going toward it, but I was still married to med school. So undergrad, of course, was tough. I was dealing with chronic illness, dealing with that because of that whole semester of having to get used to more doctor's appointments, more medication, all of these things, and not being 100% during that time. My grades suffered. So at that point, I got D's and C's and B and like maybe one or two B's, and it really killed my GPA. So at that point, I had my GPA had dropped to like a 2.7. And I don't know if y'all know about med school. That's not good. That's not good. But I was like, look, I'm a woman of faith. I'm like, I don't know how it's going to work out, but the Lord knew this was going to happen. I didn't. I found out about the Office of Disabilities, had no idea about those type of things, got resources, was able to get help to manage school and manage chronic illness at the time, and this newfound invisible disability that I now had. So after this was like fall semester when I was diagnosed, we're going into the spring. I'm taking more harder sciences, and I just feel a nudge from the Holy Spirit to go ahead and let go of pre-med and my med school dream and pursue a PhD. So going into being a psychologist, basically. Drop the psychiatrist situation and go full speed ahead with psychologists. And I was just feeling this nudge to do that. And I knew it wasn't me because, as y'all know from the story, I'm very married to the med school idea. And I was resistant to it because I was like, well, I have wanted to be a doctor my whole life, a medical doctor my whole life. So I don't even know what a psychologist exactly entails to become one. Like, I have just studied the process of how you get into med school, how you get through med school, and I just know that career path very well. I don't know what a psychologist, what all they have available to them, what they do, what the path looks like, what's the requirements to get into that program. Like, I do not know at this point. But what I end up finding out when I finally, what really helped me to be obedient to what I was being nudged to do, is as I was sitting in my physics class, I was just like, you know what? I don't know what language they're speaking at this point, and I really feel like I am not going to get through. If this is not what the Lord has me to do, if I'm not graced to do this, I'm not going to be grinning and bearing this. Like, if you know about those sciences and med school and everything, like, if you have to be graced for that. That has to be something that the Lord is leading you through. So if he's literally telling me, like, no, this is not the route, I need to be obedient to that, because I'm going to need him to get through whatever it is he's calling me to do. And I knew that. And so from there, I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and change my major. I ran over to the advisor building or whatever, where they, you can change your stuff. And so I met with my advisor, changed my major officially to psychology, and dropped the pre-med thing, and was like, okay, how do you become a psychologist? So now I'm doing my research, like, how do you become a psychologist? What do you need for those applications and all of that? Mind you, at this point, like I said, I have a 2.7 GPA, so it's not looking good for any kind of graduate school program. But I'm trusting what the Lord said. So now we move into my junior year, and I decide junior year to double major in African diaspora studies. And I'm like, I'm going to study abroad in Ghana. I found out about that program, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to take an extra year, basically. And my goal is, with this extra year, taking a fifth year, is to bring up my GPA. Because I was like, all right, let's go from this 2.7 and let's graduate with a 3.0. Let's do that. That was my goal, is to graduate with a 3.0 and go from there. So with that being said, we now fast forward to my fourth year, which would have been my senior year, but I decided to take that extra victory lap. So now we're in my fourth year. This is the year where you have to apply. No, actually, no, not my fourth year. So let's fast forward all the way to the fifth year. So now we're in my actual senior year, fifth year, and this is the year you actually have to apply, so that you can know where you're going in the spring. And so I have, at the time when I'm applying, it was a 2.7 GPA that I had. And so I am applying for these programs that are telling me that you have to have a 3.5, and I don't have a 3.5 at this point. But we're just gonna apply and see what happens, because I really felt like that's what the Lord was telling me to do. So I apply, and I'm doing my going through it. I through being involved with the Association of Black Psychologists, I have a lot of research experience under my belt. I got involved with other research labs on campus, all of this because I found out what you need to do, and I am doing my best to have a really strong application on things that I can actually control, because there's really nothing I can do about that GPA. I'm sorry. Like, I'm doing my best to make up for it, but I'm literally digging myself out of a hole at this point. So I'm just like, look, this is what I got. So with that being said, I had really strong recommendation letters, really good research experience. I believe my GRE is pretty average. It's not like stellar or anything, but it's not horrible. And I really worked hard on that personal statement and how to make it in a way where they knew I'm so serious about doing this, and also was able to tastefully put in there like why my GPA had took a little plummet, and in a tasteful way. And people helped me to do that. And I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. So I applied for 7 programs all over the country. I knew I wanted to leave Texas at the time. And so I applied for 7 different programs all over the country, Midwest, on the East Coast, all of these things. I didn't go to the West Coast though. Felt like it was a little expensive. But I went everywhere else, and I was like, let's see what happens. And I remember my mentor at the time was like, you should apply to UMKC in Missouri. And I was like, I don't even know that school, but hey, if you think it will fit, I'll apply. And I remember saying like this was my last choice because I didn't want to really move to Missouri. I don't know much about Missouri. No shade to Missouri. I lived there for 8 years. But I was like, I don't know much about this place. It didn't seem like a very attractive place for a state to live. I was like, I want to go to the East Coast. Got family over there. I don't know nobody that's in the Midwest. I was like, but I'll apply. So it's gonna be my last choice, y'all. I got rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter. And then I also got like offers for master's programs, but I knew like they were like, okay, you're not going to get into our PhD program, but we'll offer you a spot in our master's program. And I knew what the Lord said. He was like, go get a PhD psychologist. So I was like, I'm not going to settle for these master's program. I'm just going to really trust that I'm going to get into a PhD program. So I got an interview at UMKC and I was like, okay, just need one yes, let's go. And I went to the interview. And as I was going through the interview, it was like split into 2 days. The first day we were with the students. And one of the students, Black female, she had called me aside. Mind you, I'm in this space and I felt super intimidated. It must have been on my face that I felt like super intimidated because everybody around me was talking about all the different researches they've done, all the publications that they've done, and all these different things, and how they wanted to do this since they were 5. And I was like, I just discovered this the other day. So I kind of felt very intimidated. And as they were talking about all the different accolades they had and all of this, I was just like, how am I going to get into this program? Like, I don't eat, sleep, and breathe this. And it seems like everybody else does. And she had called me aside. I guess she saw my face, and thank God for this. But this made all the difference. She called me aside and she was just like, you're qualified. Like, you're qualified. All you are here for at this interview is to now clarify fit, whether or not you fit in this program. Because as far as your qualifications, you're qualified. But do you fit? Does your personality fit here? Is this going to be a good fit and a good match? That's what you're here to figure out for yourself and for faculty to figure out about you. And that was a game changer, a perspective shift. And I'm thankful for her to this day for doing that because when she said that to me and I was like, I'm qualified. And I went from feeling like, oh no, to being like, oh, I'm like low key interviewing you all too. And I was like, this is great. And I was able to be 100% myself that next day when it was like we're in front of everybody and faculty and all of that. And everything went so well. I remember even being in the bathroom and one of the other candidates, she was like, I don't know about me, but she was like, you're definitely getting in. She was like, you're definitely getting in. And I just remember the group interview, which was probably the most intimidating one when you had to like do this group interview. We had to pick questions from an envelope. And the question I picked was like, what is like a challenge you've had to recently overcome? And I talked about lupus because that's all that came to mind. I didn't want to talk about it, but that was the only thing that came to mind. So I was like, okay, Lord, I'm going to trust you to help me say this in a tasteful way. And from there, it was just beautiful. And as I was leaving, I remember like rolling my bag, heading to the airport and looked back at the school and I was like, I'll be back. Because I knew that I was getting in. Like I just felt it. And I don't know how many days later, I want to say like it wasn't that long. It was probably like 3 days or something. But I ended up getting a call from my advisor and she was just like, hey, we want to offer you a spot here and you can think about it. And like she was giving me all the spiel about you have so many days to think about it and whether you want to accept. And I was like, I accept. And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, I accept. Little do y'all know, you're the only one that offered. So I accept. I didn't say that, by the way. But in my head, I was like, girl, I don't have no other options. And I already knew I was coming here because when I left, I was like, I'll be back. So I'm coming back. And I literally moved down to Kansas City, Missouri to start my program. And I was so green, so excited. I thought, okay, the hardest part is over. I thought the hardest part was getting in. Y'all, the hardest part was getting out. That was the hardest part for me. So once I get into this program, the classes are challenging. The most challenging class was like statistics and stuff like that. The other courses, like the counseling courses and the diversity course and all this other stuff, those were fun. I love those. Those weren't as bad. Um, but some of those courses were definitely challenging. The pace was a lot faster, having to figure a lot of things out. And then on top of that, our program wasn't that diverse at the time. And so there was a lot of dealing with microaggressions and racism, which I wasn't Because I'm like, I wasn't exposed to that at my school before, because I said I came from this PWI, and that was a lot what I was dealing with. But to me, it was so disheartening being in this program, in this smaller setting, in this more intimate setting, and this was happening, because I felt like the program during their advertising online, and also with interview day and how things went, that they were like really advertising how inclusive they were, and it just didn't feel like that once I got there. um and so I was like, what happened? Like, y'all are good at recruiting, but not retaining. And that really made me upset, because there were so much things I felt like I had to deal with that my colleagues just didn't have to. And it was just really hard. And even hearing about the stories from those who went before me, and just their challenges and different professors that were known to do certain things and all of that, I'm like, how are they getting away with this? And being the firecracker that I am, I was like, oh no, we something has to be done. And think I'm in my second and third year, between there. I um really want go into advocacy. Like, I decide that, we can't continue these things. And my mission was to ensure that whoever came after me was going to have a better experience than I did, because I felt in my head that I had such a great support system, like back home with my family, also my friends, also my faith. And so I was like, I have all of this on my side. And so I'm able to like take on a different perspective. And I'm like, what happens to those students who don't have that? What's going to happen to them? Are they going to get lost in the sauce? Are they going to give up on their dreams and what the Lord has for them because they're hitting so much opposition? Not on my watch. And I don't know. I just felt very empowered to do something about that. And through that, I was able to team up with other students, and we started an organization. And through that organization, was able to meet with people that not only in my program, but then also like on the more the grad school level as well. So like within our program, then also on the grad school level, just to have these discussions around not only being able to recruit diversity, but also retain it. And so that was something I got to do that to this day I'm like, girl, how did you make time for that? But I remember telling one of my colleagues during that time, I was like, I really feel like I'm putting a target on my back by doing this, and that it wasn't going to be very comfortable for me going through the rest of the program. And that rang true. It did. And I don't think it was I truly believe we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. So I'm not, to this day, I'm not angry, and I'm not naming names on purpose, because I'm not angry at anybody at that school or like anything that happened there. Um, I'm just not in that space. I really feel like there's just a lot of warfare and a lot of different things that were trying to, stop me from doing what the Lord has for me. And they were just like pawns. That's kind of how I see it. I feel like they were just pawns in that, in the enemy's tactics. And that's how I see it, so that I'm not like hating the person, more so the spirit that's operating behind them. That is what I'm like praying against, not the person. Um, so yeah, because I believe all people are beautiful and precious, and that the Lord loves us all. He loves his creation. So, but sometimes we can operate with some things that are not as beautiful and precious. So I believe that was a lot of what was going on, whether they were conscious of it or not. Some of them were, some of them weren't. And it was just a lot of different challenges that took place after that, that put me in a position to at times really wonder if I was going to make it through this program. And to make a long story short, I'll just name some of those highlights. There was so much, but I think something major things that took place in my program. One being the time that I went to this practicum site that I'm not going to name, but it was known to be a practicum site that was not very inclusive, particularly around people of color, particularly around Black people. Let's just be honest. But I went anyway because I wanted to get the training at that site. It was very unique, and there was just I really wanted the training that I would get there. And of course, I had issues there with my supervisor and a lot of different things. Plus, I was dealing with like lupus stuff, and they weren't knowing too much about what that meant and how that was affecting me. And I didn't feel safe enough to share about that, but I was letting my program know what was happening the whole time. And then I was there for a year, and then we get to the end of my practicum contract, if you will. And so at that point, I feel like I had like a week left before I would be done with my training there. And I get called into the office, and they let me know that they were sending me home that day. They were like, pack up your stuff. You're not coming back. You turn in your keys and like all of these things. And I'm like, this can't be real life. Like to this day, I don't know how that happened. Like, I just feel like a lot of stuff that happened to me was just unreal. But I was like, what? And I remember asking them, like, did I do something wrong with the patient? Like, what happened? Client stuff? Like, they were like, no, you did a great job with the clients. Like, they love you. It wasn't your clinical work. It literally is like how you're operating with like the supervisors and the different people that are in power. Um, and I know we had issues, and they were just like, they haven't been resolved. And so we're just going to send you home. But I'm like, y'all, I have a week left. You couldn't just like hold it together for one more week? Because I'm holding it together for one more week. We can't be cordial for one more week. What's going on? So I was very confused by that and how they got away with that. My program was very supportive during that time. But the issue was I was in a spot that that was my last practicum rotation, and I needed that in order to apply for internship. So I wasn't going to be able to apply for internship because I didn't have a complete last rotation. So because of what took place, they allowed for me to do another rotation, make up for it basically. But it was going to take another year. So that was one setback, adding a year of time because of that situation, which I wasn't mad at because I did need a little bit more time working on some other things. And so I wasn't mad. And I used that year to do a practicum at a church counseling center, which was amazing because I got to learn more about that's where my interest in like spirituality, religion, work came from. So it actually worked out for my good, but I was very angry. And literally, I found out about all of the stuff that was going on while I was like during that summer. So it was just like, ugh, this is just so much. So that was one. Another highlight to talk about is taking this class with this professor that was very much known to be hard on students of color, and have a lot to say. But you have to take her class. And I already knew, like, I knew about her, I knew about the class, I knew about all this stuff that was going to take place. So I was dreading taking her class, like, my whole tenure there. But, I had to take her class. It was like a requirement. So I'm in her class, and I remember one of my friends calling me and being like, hey, she is trying to say that I plagiarized this and da 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 da. And I remember praying for her and being like, girl, nothing's gonna happen. You'll be fine. And that's exactly what happened. Nothing went wrong with her. It was well, it got dropped. Cool, cool, cool. And I was like, okay, cool. And then it was my turn. So then I get turned in, but instead of coming to me like she did with this student, she went straight to the dean. Like she didn't even like try to talk to me, try to talk to my advisor, nothing. She went straight to the dean, turned me in. It was like straight there. Um I don't know all the ins and outs of what happened. All I know is I get this email that's like, you've been turned in for this. This is what happened. You have to meet at this time, blah, blah, blah. And I am devastated. And I just go back and I'm like, Lord, like, what are we doing? Why me? Like, so much is happening. You told me to go get this PhD, and it's hard. So much is happening. Um, and long story short, with that process is I ended up being able to meet with the dean, and we talked, and he was like, I don't think you plagiarized this. And so I basically got a warning and just explanation to make sure I'm careful with all of these things and all of that. And it was dropped. So that was like another thing that happened. That was like, what is going on? Um, Trying to think. Ugh, it was just so much. But I feel like, and then a lot of different back and forth with my advisor, who ended up not being the advisor that I ended up when I graduated. Officially, I ended up being with another advisor because that advisor left. So many different transitions there. Just had a hard relationship with her in general, but by the end, I feel like we were able to settle our differences. At least I feel that way. Hopefully, she does too. There was just a lot there, and man, as I think about some of these things, I'm just like, wow, how did I get through all of this? But yeah, those are like the major things. But there were so many other things that happened, like at practicum sites, so many things that happened between students, so many different things that were trying to stop me. And I think the last thing that was a major thing was with my dissertation. And those who have written a dissertation, you know that when you are defending your proposal, usually that's when they rip you apart. Like when you're proposing it and they're telling you, like, oh, this has to be done, this got to be done, all of that. And of course, that happened to me when I was defending my proposal, but then it got approved. And of course, I had to do certain things to ensure that it did. And so I went through the process of um, writing my dissertation, doing all the things. And then I get to the end where I'm presenting my dissertation, what they call the dissertation defense. But usually you don't have to like really defend yourself like too much. Like they'll have questions and edits and stuff, but it's usually not people ripping you apart again. But mine was that. And that's not normal. And I had people witnessing. I had my friends there who were like, whoa, what was that? So that's ended up happening. But again, y'all, I really feel like it wasn't personal. I think, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, and that's just how my perspective of it all. But we get there, and at this point I had my son. I had just had my son. And so I have a newborn. I'm trying to finish this dissertation, and at the time I had like 2 weeks to get it done. So that was like a whole thing. But the Lord was with me and I was able to get it done and I graduated. And something I skipped that I do want to go back to that year is that summer. So internship was amazing. I think internship was when I went on internship, that was such a healing experience for me. Because I was able to just be in an environment that I didn't feel like I had to fight anybody on internship. I think throughout um, my tenure and of classes and practicum, I felt like I had to fight my way through that. And I just feel like the Lord just allowed me to have rest on internship. Getting into internship was a challenge because I got married at the time and I didn't want to move. And I was living in St. Louis, and the closest university counseling center was in Columbia, which is 2 hours away. And so I was like, well, that's where I'm going to have to go. And so basically, I had one site to apply to, and you only need one yes. So it was just a lot of faith going into that. I remember people thinking I was crazy, like everybody applies to more than one site, but I only applied. I literally applied to two, knowing that the second one I applied to, like I wasn't going to get it because I wasn't qualified, but I just signed up for it just in case. But I ended up getting an interview at Mizzou. I ended up interning there, and it was such a healing experience. To this day, I'm so glad that I was able to round out my education with that experience. During that time, I did get pregnant with my son, and because of that, I didn't graduate in I didn't graduate in May or get to cross in May. I had to wait till December. So that delayed postdoc. And it's significant to talk about that because the Lord will always provide. And I remember being in that being in this space where I was like, Lord, I was angry. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just gonna admit, I was angry because I was like, I've gone through so much have been delayed, and now even graduation is delayed, and now getting a postdoc position is not going to be delayed. And I was angry because I was like, man, how much more delays are we going to have? Am I happy about that? Like having a baby is a great delay, like a great delay to have, right? But I was like, why can't I just do both? I was like really upset about this. But I finally accepted it and was like, okay, I'm just going to trust you with this timeline. So I have him in May and I take some time off, which delayed graduation. And so I'm on maternity leave, and everybody else is telling me where they're matching and where they're going to go for their postdoc and what they're going to do and all that. And of course, I'm happy for them. And I'm just like, okay, I'll just wait. It'll be my turn next year. And I get this text message from my dad, and he's like, follow me, y'all. Your God's sister's father has a best friend that is out in Texas, and he's looking for people to work at his private practice. So I assumed it was in Houston. That's where my family is. And I was like, okay, cool. Pretty sure I'm not going to get it because I haven't graduated yet, and it's a postdoc position. I'm not a postdoc yet, and most postdocs start in August. I'm definitely here feeding my newborn on maternity leave. So yeah, they're not going to waste their time, but of course, I will be obedient and reach out. So I reached out, and I ended up being introduced to him. We met over Zoom, and we were talking for at least an hour or so, and it just felt like it flowed. And I was like, I just had that feeling again where I'm like, okay, God is opening a door. Like I don't know exactly how he's opening a door, but he's opening a door with this. And I ended up applying for the postdoc position. It was in Dallas, Texas, and I applied. And I was like, I don't know how you're gonna do this, Lord, because it definitely starts in August, but I'm gonna just trust you because you're opening a door. I know you're opening a door. And so I get the position, and I don't sign right away because I've talked to my husband, of course, and be like, okay, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna work this out? Because I really felt like my husband's gonna be like, nope, we can't do it. We can't move, so you can't accept the position. Um, and I was like kind of worried about that and upset because I'm like, this is a great opportunity. Like, I really want to go into private practice. This will round out my training because I have never been at a private practice. This will teach me the business side. I need to learn this so that I can do what the Lord's calling me to do. So I just felt very much like this is the door that the Lord is opening. Um, and so I talked to my husband, and then he was just like, I know it's a great opportunity for you. I'm very excited for you. And we have a family. So then they know that. And so if they're open to waiting for you to move to Dallas for until December, then you can take the position. But if not, then you're just gonna have to wait. And like not take it. So I was just like, they're not gonna wait till December for me to start. Like, no, they want somebody in August. Like, they're not doing it. Like, I was like, okay. So then I'm like, Lord, I know you don't tease people. You don't dangle stuff in front of their face and different opportunities and then be like, never mind. So I'm like, I don't know how you're going to do this, but I'm just going to tell him. So I told him, I was like, can we talk? And so I met with him again because I felt like I needed him to see my face as I'm telling him this because I'm like, maybe he will have mercy on me. So I let him know, like, hey, I have a family. We're not going to be able, it's July. We're not going to be able to move by August to Dallas, and we can move in December. That'll give my husband enough time to find a job. That'll give us enough time to find a place to live, daycare, all these different things we're going to have to do in making this move, pack up, like all this stuff. And he was like, oh, I knew this was going to happen. So we are licensed to supervise. So you can start remotely because, pandemic happened. So everything was online now. So he was like, yeah, this will work out. We can do this. And I was shocked. I was like, did this just work out? And so it worked out. And I was able to go ahead and start in August, finish up my internship, start with them, make that transition fully remotely. And then in December, we moved, which was a whole nother faith walk, y'all, because we didn't know where we were going to live until like 2 weeks before we moved. Like, I kept telling people we're moving to Dallas. I don't know. It was like a whole thing trying to find a house to rent at the time. And so that was a whole nother story. But being able to move out here to Dallas and start that postdoc, I originally thought that I was going to transition from that postdoc to early career and like stay at that practice like long term. I was like, okay, this is where God has me. I'm going to stay. But the Lord let me know during that first year that I was going to open my own practice. He gave me the name for it, and to just be ready that this was going to take place. And so he said, Heal to Here. He gave me the mission, gave me all of that. And I was just like, okay, whenever you're ready. But I'm thinking this is not going to happen 5-10 years, something like that. But until then, I'll be here at this clinic and continue there. So I signed a 2-year contract at the time. And so there was a lot of things going on there, a lot of transitions and all of that. And I was thinking, okay, what am I going to do when this is over? Am I going to sign another contract to stay longer? That's what I originally was thinking. But by the time we get to the second year, I was like, I feel a shift is taking place, and I don't feel like I'm ready for it, but I feel the shift taking place. And this is when God let me know, when your contract is up in August, you're going to start Heal to Here. That's what we're going to do. And I find that out in spring of 2023. And we're in South Africa at the time for one of my friends' weddings. And I just know, like, when I get back, I need to have this conversation with my supervisor and the owner of the practice, that I will be leaving in August so that we can start that transition process and get it started. And I did. That was definitely a hard conversation to have because, again, I thought I was going to be staying there longer. And this put a lot of pressure on me because I had not taken my licensure exam yet. I had all of my hours and everything, but I had not taken my licensure exam. And at that point, I was like, I have to study for this test and I have to pass it. And I have to pass it on the first try because I am leaving this practice and I need to be fully licensed when I leave. At least that's what I thought. So, fast forward to May. At this point, we find out we're pregnant with our second child. And I was offered a position at a university here to be assistant clinical director. And I was super excited. But the caveat there was that I needed to be fully licensed. So they were like, can you take your test as soon as possible? And once you pass it, then we'll be able to offer you the job. Because I had everything I needed to be licensed except for passing that EPPP exam. So I went ahead and signed up for the test. I took it and I failed. And I went to the interview anyway. I was in top 3. They interviewed me anyway, even though I told them I did not pass. They said, okay, you can take it again. So I had took it like the 3rd of May, and then I signed up to take it again. I was trying to sign up to take it again at the end of May, but there was nothing available, so I had to wait till June. I believe it was June 27th or something like that. But I remember having to sign up for again. At this point, I'm staying up at night, late every night studying because I'm like, I want to get this job. This job will be great. So it's in my head. I was like, get this full-time position with this university, guaranteed check, guaranteed benefits, open Hill to Here at the same time, slowly build Hill to Here, but you have this guaranteed check. So this check, not so guaranteed, but don't matter because you have this guaranteed check. And I'm pregnant. So I'm like, oh, we definitely need a guaranteed check because we have this, my son, and now we're pregnant. And I was like, yeah, we definitely need to have this. And so we get into June and we go for our doctor's appointment and they can't find her heartbeat. And I was like, what do you mean? What's going on? So they were like, well, maybe, she's just like a little too small, or like, we don't know. We're gonna call you back in 2 weeks and see if we are able to find a heartbeat. It might just be too early. We may have miscalculated all of these things. And so I wasn't worried about it because I know Caleb was always measuring in smaller than they expected. So I was already kind of like immune to that and wasn't as worried. So I was like, okay, Lord, like we've been through similar things and you've come through. So this is light work. So I was just feeling like it'll be well. So we were scheduled to go back the same week I was taking the exam. So we were scheduled for the next ultrasound that Tuesday, and I took the test the second time that Thursday. So we go in, and I look at the ultrasound, and I look and I see that there hasn't been any progress. So I'm just like, okay, I kind of feel like I know what's happening here and what they're going to say, but I'm going to let them say it. And I'm going to pray against it. That's basically what I decided. I was like, I want this baby. And I don't know how the Lord's going to do this, but I'm convinced. And they let us know that we were going to miscarry and that it wasn't a viable pregnancy. And I was in denial. I was in straight denial. I said, there's no way. There's no way you're going to put me in this position, Lord, where you're telling me that I'm about to lose my baby while you're telling me to transition from this guaranteed check, and then I'm not passing this test and you told me to go get this PhD and become the psychologist. There's a lot going on right now, Lord, and none of this makes sense. Mind you, I've been fighting my whole life. I feel like fighting through this program, fighting through all of these things. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, this can't be. This can't be. Like, I'm in denial 100%. This is not happening. So I feel like my husband was accepting it. I was not. I was like, I mean, I don't want to say he was accepting. I don't want to speak for him, but he was taking it better than me. I was like, this is not happening. Praying against it. Not happening. I just remember being in my prayer closet and just like wrestling with God. And just telling him, and I finally like was very honest with him. I was like, the reason why I'm in denial, the reason why I refuse to believe that this is happening to me right now is because I don't know what happens on the other side of this, because I have been walking with you. I have taken a lot of hits. Of course, you've been with me. You've been softening the blow. I understand. Now, I didn't understand then. I understand now that you've been with me this whole time in all of this suffering. You've held my hand. You've blocked some stuff that could have happened that didn't happen. You've turned everything for good. I don't know if I have enough faith to let this happen in the way that it's happening and to still go to you and be like, we're good. I don't know if we'll be good after this. I'm gonna be honest. And I was like, I don't want that for us. I don't want that for us. I don't want to be in this position where I'm angry at you. I don't want nothing to do with you because I can't afford to be angry with you. I can't afford to not talk to you. I can't afford not to be close to you. I can't afford that now. Like before, I felt like I could afford it, but now I know I cannot. Like all the things that you're having me to do require faith, require me to lean on you, require me to rest in you, require me to know that you are good. And if I don't believe that, I don't think I'm gonna make it. And I don't know how I can believe that if this is what's happening right now, where everything feels like it's falling apart and I don't have a plan for any of it. Because how am I gonna leave this job and open a practice and I ain't passed this test that I ain't passed? How am I going to grieve the loss of a baby? Like what? I don't no. I just don't. Um and I wrestled and we wrestled, and from there I just remember the Lord letting me know, and he was just like, you pray for your kids all the time, born and unborn, and you pray for them to always, to know me and to be with me. And she's with me. And when he said that, I broke down, obviously, and I was just like, eh. Like that's not how I wanted to hold her first, but okay. And it was hard, but from there I was like, okay. And I went in on that Thursday to take my exam, and I felt really good about it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna pass. And y'all, I got a 450 and need a 500, so I failed. And I remember going to Chipotle after, and I was like, Lord, I can't say I'm angry. I'm just confused at this point. I'm like, I'm miscarrying, like literally bleeding right now. And I just failed again. It's June. My contract's up in August. I have one more month where I'm at this practice, and then I got a month to kind of figure out what I'm doing. What am I doing? I'm not getting this job, obviously, because I didn't pass the test, so they're not hiring me. They hired somebody else. So what am I doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What is next? And he didn't give me an answer. Then that Monday I ended up, because I was bleeding. It was like a process. Miscarrying was like a whole process. It was probably like a week-long process of just like bleeding. And then Monday, that's when the bleeding got super heavy. And that's when I literally passed everything and I had to go to emergency room. It was a lot. But then after all of that, I was just like, okay, what are we doing? And I was just grieving that. And that Sunday, I just remember the Lord, I watched this sermon that this lady who had prayed for me sent, and during that sermon, I just felt like the Lord was saying, call Charnel. And this was a colleague that I went to undergrad with, had graduated before me, fully licensed, all of that, has her own practice. And I called her and I let her know my situation, and she already knew that I was planning on taking the test and all of that, but she didn't know I had failed and like all the other background information. So I just got her up to speed, and I was like, can you do me a favor? Can you supervise me? I need a supervisor. I'll pay you, of course. But and she was like, that's crazy, because I was literally thinking of letting that be another, avenue that I'll start doing. And then you call and you're offering, that opportunity to start now. And so she agreed. And that's how I was able to open Heal to Here. And I thank God for her. I thank God for this process. And um, he even from that, I remember my sister, she would ask me, so that was taking place. So Heal to Here was opening. And then my sister had asked me, can I speak about grief at uh, at the sickle cell warrior conference. And I partner with her in the sickle cell foundation. So I've done other things. I've done workshops. I did a workshop on grief for them earlier that year. And so she was like, can you do that same workshop at this conference? And she had no idea, as she was asking me this, that I had just lost a child to miscarriage. Like, she had no idea. That may have changed her, how she approached me, but she didn't know. And she asked me, and I remember wrestling internally, like, I'm literally grieving now. Like, how's this going to go? But I felt led to say yes. Um, and then later on, she found out what was going on, and I let my whole family know and everything. And I went to that conference, and I talked in July. It was in July, and I talked about grief, and I I guess kind of jokingly say that grief went on tour. That was like, as I was processing grief and in my own way, I was going in therapy and all of that, and I was processing grief for myself. I was also like really going out, because from that opportunity, from that space, there was people who came up to me and they're like, can you do this in this space? Can you talk about grief in this space? And I was able to go to Montreal, Canada, and talk about grief there. And it was just like amazing to be able to talk about something that, to be honest, even though I've been doing this work for a while, like, grief wasn't something that I felt super comfortable with, because it was something that I myself didn't allow myself to go there. And I feel like miscarrying our daughter really put me in a position to go there. And I didn't go there by myself. Like, I really was able to invite God into that process, and that's what made the difference. And that's why I was able to talk about it and talk about it now. And I had to grieve so much. Like, yes, miscarriage was a huge thing I had to grieve, but I also had to grieve like my plans. I had to grieve like how I thought things were going to happen with Heal to Here. I had to grieve all those years in school. I had to grieve so much. And the Lord just was so kind in being able to show me where he's been. That's why, as I'm talking to you now, like, I haven't told my story like fully before, because I felt like there were still things I needed to heal from. But I'm talking about it now from a healed space. And I know I'm talking about it from a healed space because I don't want to give names. I don't want to call people out, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. And the Lord has really helped me to realize, like, to put these things in perspective, and like also being able to really see where he is in the suffering, which is right there, like sitting with me, crying with me, fighting for me. Um, and so I'm so thankful for that perspective and to be in this space. So I was able to open the practice in August and be supervised. And that whole time, from August all the way into actually this year, I was just like asking God, like, okay, when am I going to take the test to become fully licensed? So this whole process will finally be over. This whole fight will probably finally be won. This battle will be won. And so I'm doing things. I'm and like he's opening doors, and it was amazing, and it is amazing. And then I'm in my shower in Feb no in March. I'm in my shower in March, and he finally says, sign up for the test. And I hear it clear as day. I know it's not me, so I know it's him. And been praying for him to tell me this for months. And then when he finally tells me, I'm like, I'm not ready. What's going on? But I finally, I got out the shower and I go on my computer and I start the process of signing up. And all that's available is like not August, April 7th. And this is March. And I'm like, I'm not ready to take the test April 7th, because I wasn't consistently studying. Like, I was kind of studying, but not as consistently. So I was like, I'm not ready to take this test. And I was like arguing with God. And and my computer refreshes and then the date goes away. And I was like, oh no. And there's no date available until well past the summer into the fall. And I was like, I don't have that long. I knew I didn't have that long to take this test. Like, I have to take this test now. And I was like, Lord, forgive me, just help my unbelief, because I am scared. Like, I was just admitting God how I felt, and like, why the hesitation and all of that. And so then after that, refreshed the computer a couple times, and then it popped back up. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. And I signed up for the test April 7th. From that time in March when I signed up, I don't remember the exact day, but I feel like I had a month. And so from there, I was like, okay, what do I need to study? And I was really led to study strategy, like strategy for taking tests rather than all the materials. Like, you did enough material, let's do strategy. So I found a workshop for that and was recommended. It really helped. And so I did that, and then I went in and took the test on the 7th. And he was with me, y'all, like literally with me, guiding me on what to do, reminding me of things I had been exposed to, the material and all of that, and even helped me picking what number to pick. And like, it was beautiful. It was just a beautiful experience. I was the most calm I've been through him. And I remember just waking up that day on the 7th, that morning, and he was like, tell the mountain to move. And when he told me that, I was like, oh, I'm passing this test. Like, I knew I'm passing this test because this has been a mountain. And so I told the mountain to move, and I was just praising him in advance. And yeah, took the test. I passed, praise God, and then became fully licensed in April. And then I was able to no longer be supervised, and now I am fully licensed, and also have gone on to become part of Psych Pact so that I could be able to see people via telehealth in multiple states. And I know I recently put out something on social media letting people know that that is something I can do now. And I'm just in awe of God. And those are just like the genesis of Heal to Hear, and like just how we got here. I skipped a bunch of stuff because this is already a long podcast. There's so much more to talk about. Like, I got married during while I was still in school. I know I talked about my son. There was just, even that was a faith. There was so much faith walks in between all of this that I can talk about. But I wanted to just highlight a couple of things, and I just hope that this blesses somebody. Being able to kind of reflect on this today has encouraged me, because there is a lot that the Lord is opening doors for right now, and opportunities for, and it's causing me to walk deeper and deeper on that water. Okay. And I definitely have to keep my eyes on him. And so I am so glad that on the other side of the grief and all of these things, that we are closer than ever, and I can see where he is more than ever. And now I ask how. Like, how are we going to do this, Lord? Like, how are we going to do this? Where are you in this? Is like, and help me to see. And that's just really the questions that I find myself asking him as we walk together. So I'll end it there, because I know we've been here for a while, and I am thankful for all of you who have listened today. And as we go through this season and you hear stories from amazing people that are doing amazing work for the kingdom in our community around healing, and I do interviews with them. And then also, as we continue the Heart Condition series phase 2 in season 3, I'm so excited to go deeper into identity and what it means to have a child heart, to just be a child of God, to be a son of God, to be truly grafted in. So I'm just excited to go on that journey and share more about that. So I love you guys so much, and let's continue to heal together. And I will see you next Thursday. Come on, season 3. And until then, bye y'all.